What is love? That's the big one. I want to hear God's answer to that one. I want to hear the answers to how do you actively love someone? How can you tell when someone loves you? How can you love someone without first loving yourself? What does it mean to love yourself? Is love a feeling or an action? It is definitely a verb, as much as jump is a verb. But it's not as distinctive as jump, because love is an action in a hug. Love is an action in washing someone's feet. It's an action in sitting down and listening to someone's day, even when your day is 10 times worse. That's love. To the first of my lovers on the line for you, and the last of my lords, I light a candle still, and the bells will be ringing on a line for you, for the first of my lovers and the last, and the bells will be ringing on a line for you, for the first of my lovers and the last.
Major support for The Mystery of Love is provided by the Fetzer Institute as part of its campaign for love and forgiveness, transforming individuals and communities. Additional support provided by Southwest Airlines, offering 2,900 daily non-stop flights to 60 destinations coast to coast. The Betsy Gordon Foundation, supporting nonprofit organizations working for the benefit of humanity. And by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Every life is a love story, or contains one, for better and for worse. Part biography, and part a work of the imagination. It can be a comedy that ends with living happily ever after, or a tragedy ending in death. In popular culture, one type of love, passionate sexual romance, is prized above all.
I never knew it could be like this. Nobody ever kissed me the way you do.
But there are many kinds of love that give shape and meaning to life. Passionate connections that define what we value as human beings. Most of all, love is a question, with libraries filled with answers. Still, love remains a mystery that eludes understanding. In a world that seems headed toward mass self-destruction, we need to explore the force that holds things together, the positive force of love. We need to expand our definition of love, including love and passion's dark side. We need to recognize and honor equally the many loves that help create a healthy life and society. We need to put love on the public agenda. In this program, we'll see real love stories, different loves, all important, if not equally told or sold in the popular media.
Arthur Koestler said if I could take one man off the hook in the trains going to the concentration camps, if I could just get in there and take one man off the hook, I would have done what I need to do as a human being. Is that the ultimate act of love, saving one life? I don't know.
I think people don't feel that they have permission to talk about something that makes them as vulnerable as love, so we don't usually talk about it in public. I once had the idea of having a red bench in every corporation, and the red bench would be an invitation to conversations that matter. So if you sat on the red bench, you were saying, I'm open to a conversation about love, or a conversation about truth, or something that matters to me.
Sometimes the red bench of love and truth is on an airplane. Meet Emily Lodine and Gary Overgaard of Minnesota.
I guess when I went on this trip, I definitely didn't intend on looking for a wife, but it's just the way things happened. I had bought a new farm sprayer from Denmark, and part of the deal was I got a free trip to go to Denmark to see the sprayers manufactured over there. So myself and the dealer went together, and Emily boarded the plane in Chicago, and it just happened that she ended up sitting by me. She told me she was an opera singer. Of course, then she asked me what I did, and I told her I was a farmer.
He, all 6 feet, 5 of him, whatever it is, he was bunched into the little middle section, and his friend was on the window seat, and I was on the aisle, and we introduced each other, and I thought, this guy's really sort of cute.
When she told me she was an opera singer, I leaned over to my buddy to the left of me, was sitting by the aisle, or the window seat, and I said, I think this is going to be a long, boring flight, because I said, this gal's an opera singer. I figured we wouldn't have much to talk about.
And then it's, what do you do, and what do you do? And we got talking, and we talked the whole trip, and I think it's at least 7.5 hours. And we were smitten after 7.5 hours.
It felt like it was like only 2 minutes, because time flew. I know that, so. He's
a former bachelor Norwegian farmer, and they tend to be bashful. And you have to chase them until they catch you, if you know what I mean. I
didn't think maybe nothing would ever happen about this, because I thought maybe it was too far of a long-distance relationship anyway. But when I had got home, she had already left a message on my answering service, so she had contacted me first. And then, so I called her back, and then we just kind of gradually kept corresponding, and one thing led to another, and then, I guess, bingo, we ended up getting married.
When I first told my best friends I was moving to Minnesota, I was marrying a farmer, I was going to just change my whole life, they were, what's the right word, flummoxed, bewildered, horrified. They couldn't believe I was giving up everything and going out there. And I sort of, I'd have an occasional doubt and say, is this really what I want to do? The first time I came out in beautiful weather, grass was green, and I remember walking outside and saying, oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous out here in Mother Nature. And I thought of Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music, and she's up on top of the mountain, and she's got her dirndl skirt on and her little prim haircut, and she's just twirling around and singing, the hills are alive with the sound of music, that we all know that bit. And lo and behold, behind me is a voice. He says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just enjoying the space. It's so sumptuously beautiful out here. And he said, don't do that. It scares the pigs and it takes weight off of them. So I thought immediately, I guess I better listen to what the farmer says. So I have stopped doing these outdoor impromptu performances. I sing in the house. The hogs get to make their noise outside of the house, and never the twain shall meet.
It's a strong odor, I guess. I don't know how else you want to describe it. If you're not used to a pig smell, it's different, but you don't want to be in here too long because it gets in your clothes after a while. If you want to be a farmer, you got to love it or you got to leave it. You're out here in the country, as you can see, it's wide open spaces. You kind of see what you're doing. You get a little baby pig in, and you get to watch that pig grow all the way up, and then you get to take it to market. Plant the crop, comes up, turns green, and in the fall you harvest the crop and get the grain out.
My mother was actually rather upset in the beginning. She said, you're giving up everything. You've worked so hard to make a career in Chicago. And I see her point because she's a mom. I think my passion about singing has deepened because I took a lot of it for granted in Chicago, and I would get, pickup jobs, weddings and funerals, and some chorus would call me and can you come sing this, and they'd want a soloist. And it all sort of came easily to me, and I really took it for granted. And now that I'm out of that scene into this one, it makes me appreciate every job I go out on. I took a risk thinking, would this work out? And it has actually helped my career to get out of Chicago. I'm still there a lot, but now I'm more all over the country singing.
You always think of opera as it's for somebody that's nobody lives in the country, but I guess I appreciate it more than I used to, because it's got a story and it's very interesting, yeah.
I can't really put my finger on what makes it work, because we are extremely different and our businesses could not be more different. But when I met him, I felt a huge respect for what he does. I mean, I think farming is one of the most noble things that one can do, to make food for other people. I felt a huge respect from him. He was very impressed with what I did. He didn't totally understand it, but I don't totally understand farming.
Last evening we had some temperatures that stayed around mid-60s to lower 70s, and that's what we need now, some warmer temps, and I could see just during the night how the corn grew. Probably sounds kind of crazy to some people, but as a farmer, you can kind of see that when you're driving down the road. You can tell the corn grew overnight.
Again, after being married 9 years, I'm still crazy about him. I think he is so adorable, especially when he's doing this farming thing, going down the road on the back of the tractor, and it has to be a tractor without a cab, because then I can see every part of him. And he's pretty darn cute. Well, sometimes I wish you'd talk a little more. I wish maybe be a little more, give me a hug more than once a fiscal year. I'm just kidding. That's how you're brought up. I mean, I understand that. I don't know. I don't really like to dwell on the down stuff, because the good stuff is so good, and you just sort of work with the other stuff. Everybody's got, I'm sure I can be impossible, right?
No.
Men and women express their love very differently, but they all want to be cared for. And sometimes men are afraid of entrapment and women are afraid of abandonment. And as one of my teachers said, a good marriage is when the neuroses mesh.
What happens in love is that you feel like you're losing your identity. But what is really happening is that you're gaining your identity unself-conscious of it. That is, you're not focused on who you are, but in being who you are, you experience it sometimes for the first time.
The Buddhists say during their wedding ceremonies, you should marry the whole world. But you can only do that through one person. The rabbis have a very similar expression. The whole world is a chuppah. The whole world is a wedding canopy. So Ketsu Norman Fisher, who is a Zen master, is actually my partner at the meditation center that we have at our synagogue. Norman wrote a beautiful poem on the morning of his own wedding. It said, of all the women in all the world, delicate in their various encasings of body, of mind, this one, bent asleep before me in the bed, is the one through whom all must be loved, as I have promised.
The need to love and be loved begins at the moment of birth. That moment, we lose the embracing safety, the bliss of the mother's womb. We are born into the world alone, naked, and vulnerable. We survive only by connection to others. It doesn't take a poster-perfect, intact family, mom, dad, and 2.4 children to create a loving home. The Swan family of Maryland has faced separation and loss, but time and sacrifice have created the deep bond of connection and love.
Bless everyone at this table. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We had never been apart, and I'm sure that I'm not the only parent who had children in Iraq felt that part of them was gone.
There's not no necessarily law that says you can't send siblings or all of one family's children into a danger zone all at the same time.
I began to realize that there was a very good possibility that my sons would not come back.
Growing up, we had so much fun in so many ways.
Y'all can build me a house, too.
We're twins. I'm the older twin. 5 minutes. I make a big deal out of it because I am his big brother.
From day one, I've always had trouble telling Brian and Ryan apart. I would dress one in red and one would be in blue, and then I would forget who had the blue on and who had the red on.
People can't tell us apart. However, my oldest brother, Henry, Trey, he's been able to do it since we were little. So he can tell us apart. Never been able to fool Trey. Never. Which one is me? Which one is Ryan?
That's you. That's Ryan. It's too easy. Ryan gives you, like, I'm smarter than you, and you give the, I'm sexy. Come on, man.
Growing up, it was hard because it wasn't a complete family like, you know, the Cosbys or anything like that. But we did make the best of our situation.
About 6 months after Brian and Ryan were born, I got divorced, became a single parent. And at that particular time, my mother moved to Prince George's County to help me with the boys and was very instrumental in helping me raise them.
At that time, my mom was teaching and she had a part-time job. I remember my mom constantly being gone working, coming back home for a minute, getting dinner ready. She'd get in late, do the same thing over and over again. We watched her struggle for a long time.
Growing up in that household, Trey really played the big brother role. When my mother wasn't there, he was in charge of the household.
They looked up to me, and I would always have to make sure they were okay and take care of them. Growing up, I felt like they were mine, you know, so I made sure that they were on the straight and narrow and they didn't go have a hard time like I did, so.
He would tell us, hey, look, make sure you got A's in your classes. And no one can tell you anything. And that's exactly what we did. I mean, we got A's in every single class. But if you ask anybody, you know, we was in the hallways. We was, you know, if there's a party, if the twins wasn't at the party, it was not a party. Okay.
They broke records. They scored the 2 highest SATs of 2 African-American males in the region.
I would like to welcome you to the graduation of Largo's class of 1998. We as products of our families, community, and school have traveled a long journey.
It was a big thing. I mean, when they came out, they could have pretty much went to any school that they wanted to go to.
I remember exactly how it started. Marine Corps recruiter walked by, and he asked me if I was interested in being in the military and being in the Marine Corps. And I said no, but if I was to do it, I would want to do it with the best. And he said, well, do you feel challenged? And that kind of stuck with me because school has never really challenged us. I remember telling Brian, he was like, man, you are crazy. We are at the top of our class. We can go to any school in the country we want to. So then I started explaining to him more and more, and I actually convinced him. He convinced me to go. I convinced him to go.
They went into the Marines straight out of high school, and I saw the positive change that it made in their lives. And me, I was sort of at a standstill. I was still living at home with my mom. I went in and out of jobs. They set me down and they talked to me, and I decided to join.
My father was a World War II veteran. I believe in my country, and I was very proud that they had made a decision to join the military.
I joined the Army in October 2000. I swore in, and I'm obligated to do whatever they ask of me.
And then, within a year's time, everything happened to the family. It started with my mother being killed.
76-year-old Mary McDonald was murdered in the shop she owned for 15 years. Now Ann Swan and her 3 sons must live their lives without their mother and grandmother.
I was totally out of control. Some individuals had gone in, attempted a robbery, killed my mother. From that point, things just started to spiral. Henry got notice to go to Iraq.
Right after we buried my grandmother, I think I had 2 more weeks with my family. After that, I was gone. For a while, I didn't have any communication with my brothers or my mom.
Then 3 months after that, we got deployed. Me and Brian got deployed to Iraq. We were at Al-Assad, 40 miles west of Baghdad.
When they left, I actually had a physical pain in my heart that I felt every day. I had never in my entire life been alone until they all left.
My unit didn't actually live in a battle zone, but when we went into Iraq, we got attacked. You could actually feel the bullets flying past you through the wind. At this time, what's going through in my mind that I might not make it home?
We were in the same unit. Our base was attacked quite a bit while we were there. And they would shoot the rockets from miles away over the perimeter right in the middle of the base. They'll come feet from where we're sleeping at night, and you learn to live with fear, you know? I'm on night crew, and he's on day crew. You know, he was worrying about me, and I was worrying about him.
I knew they were getting attacked on a daily basis. I would have did 2-3 years over there to prevent them from going. I wanted them to stay here with Mom.
I just remember worrying a lot. You know, how is she doing? Is she safe? Because she was used to having all of us around her all the time.
It was very, very difficult, but I know that I was not the only parent going through that. They love my fried fish. This is their favorite meal. Christmas, I cooked and they weren't here, and I fixed their favorite things anyway. Henry was the first one to come home. I'll never forget when the bus rolled in Annapolis, and I think I felt like a racehorse because I left everybody behind me. I was like, I'm gonna hug my son.
We were there for about 10 months. We were back in the country the end of March 2005.
I was just so happy to see him. They're laughing and playing, so I'm looking at them, I'm like, okay, they're finally home. So I felt like, you know, my heart was back with me.
And I just remember just feeling that weight come off my shoulders and off my heart to see my brother standing right there, knowing that he was okay. Ryan is right beside me, he's okay. And Mom got this big meal prepared for us, and we're here, we're done. And I would say I made both my parents and my grandmother proud. Today is September 23rd, be exactly 2 years from the day she passed.
You guys haven't seen the plaque. I had put grandmother on it.
It's sort of like a family reunion, coming all together again.
I remember all the strength and the courage that she gave me.
All the fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and broccoli.
My life could be totally different today. I could have lost not only my mother, but also my 3 sons.
This whole experience has given me a special compassion for my family. I kiss my mom, tell her I love her. My brothers, I tell them, hey, man, I love you. He was like, I love you too. It sounds sort of weird, but that's just how it is.
Of all the loves that puts someone on the right foot in life, one would have to include parental love. Because to have that feeling of safety and being embraced and being approved of and being taught and having expectations and learning to project ideas into the future and have plans is so related to what one's parents give you.
For many reasons, not everyone receives the gift of parental love. And even with good parental intentions, things can go wrong. The statistics on child abuse are shocking. In this country alone, in one recent year, 3 million charges of child abuse and neglect were filed. Almost 1 million of those were proved to be true. Mercifully, sometimes angels rush in where the shadow of love has fallen.
I'm James Donnelly, go by JD. I guess that's just kind of a tradition within the biker community. Almost everybody has a nickname or a handle that they go by.
My name is Amy. Everybody calls me Thumper because I really like the movie Bambi. But the one thing I can tell you is if my foot starts tapping and I'm not happy, move.
Bikers Against Child Abuse is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization of people who essentially like to ride motorcycles and love kids.
PD, call it to order.
We're going to call this meeting to order.
What's it mean, outcry? This is the first time, an outcry is the first time that a child says to someone else, doesn't matter who it is or where they are, when they say, something happened to me.
The children that we deal with, their cases are the worst of the worst. These are kids that have been sexually and physically abused, have cases in the court systems. We let them know we're going to be there through everything that they're going through, that we're going to be there with them. A large number of BACA members were also abused as children, and we know what they're going through. We know how it hurts, and we know what it's like to have somebody you trust and believe in hurt you.
I grew up in a real good alcoholic household. We were truly dealing with the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You never knew how drunk Daddy was going to come home, and, we dealt with things through anger and through violence. We had a friend of the family that took my brother and I on a trip once, and I was raped. Just a series of abuse in my past, and it became normal for me. I didn't know anything different. Did some time strung out on dope. Did some time drinking pretty heavily. And it was all right when you come from an abusive situation and there's no one there to abuse you. Well, why don't you just abuse yourself?
My stepfather, who my mom married when I was 6 years old, was a very big and strict person. He did the best he could to provide for his family, but he sure liked to hit. And when he became angry, that's how he dealt with it. And it would seem like the longer he hit me, the madder he got, and the madder he got, the more he wanted to hit. I hated that man for all of my childhood and most of my adult life, you know. But I did make a vow to myself that if I ever did have children, I was never going to hit them.
Hold it for him?
Yeah. I don't think every abused kid grows up to be an abuser, but I think a good portion do.
Buddy, what do you think the odds are that that valve stem is going to be on the bottom?
We've been married almost 11 years. Yeah. I've got 3 children.
Dad is a good cook. The only things he can cook is like wilderness pie and stuff.
Primarily, our joining BACA was with the intention of if we can just keep one child safe, feeling secure, then it's worth it.
I'm 13, fixing to turn 14. I was pretty much in a crazy fade back then. I was out there doing a lot of things like what teenagers and kids shouldn't be doing. I was doing a bunch of drugs and alcohol, so that pretty much messes up my mind, and I got confused. These 2 guys pulled up, and they took me to a hotel and sexually harassed me there. My parents were worried. We went to the police. They talked to me for a while, and they told me about BACA.
We got a call from Daredevil's parents that she was missing. They had assumed that she had ran away.
Torque called me. I was at work. He said, "We need to get a bunch of us together. This is serious."
The neighborhood where we suspected her to be is not one of the better neighborhoods, and there's a great deal of prostitution and drugs and things like that.
We stopped at every store and every business and handed flyers and asked had they seen this person. If they seen them, call us. Please do something.
We actually found her about 11:30 at night. We found Daredevil after looking through the businesses and things here in the neighborhood. She was sitting on the curb here, crying and in tears. I called her name and said, "Hey, it's Torque," and you could just see the relief, and she ran over and gave us a big hug.
Because they went out in the real rough area, I think they pretty much saved my life, too.
When I see somebody like Daredevil going through what she went through, it's really not a matter of, do I wonder what she's thinking? Do I wonder how she's feeling? I know, because I've been there.
You know how they have experience, you could tell the person by looking in their eyes. And I was surprised when I saw that. I was like, wow, it's a person I think who's been through the same thing as me. It felt like a lot of people are there for me, and I am loved. I have more than one family, and that's BACA.
A BACA adoption is one of the most powerful emotional things I've ever seen in my life.
Ooh, there they are.
It's a big, loud, booming, thunderous thing. Usually the kids are out in the front yard with their guardians or their parents, and they're starting to get a little excited and a little scared at the same time because it's an awesome sight.
How y'all doing?
All right.
We give them a plaque telling them that they are now a member of the BACA family. We give them a teddy bear that everybody in the group hugs.
BACA gave me this vest, and they give every single kid a vest and everything. They're saying that you're a BACA child and you don't mess with the BACA child. Just adorable to me, it's so sweet that a biker would do that, because people judge bikers wrong by thinking they're all tough, and I pretty much think they have a heart of gold.
Thumper, you're the official helmet fitter. You want to check that? Want to check that for
as
a
the
fit?
rider coach?
Every adoption, I can see a piece of my story. And sometimes it makes it rough, seeing my story. But in that, it's inevitable. I heal.
I'm not totally selfless. I don't think anybody is. I think we all do things with the hope of getting something back. Even in giving love to someone, I think we all want to be loved back,
I see
that wherever abuse, misuse, violation, the visitation of deprivations of all sorts, whenever that happens, we are killers of the dream of love. Every act of violation of another human being is a diminishment of the likelihood that there will be love in the community.
I would define the word love as listening, as understanding, as trying, going out, reaching out and connecting to other people, and not staying in yourself, not being me-minded, but going out and wanting to learn more about other people and wanting to help other people. I mean, without that want, it's just, you know, charity, mindless, feel good. You get some buzz and then you're done. But when you involve yourself in a person's life and give them what they need, that's enormously love.
In school, we used to talk about the atom as being the smallest particle of reality. Oh no, love is the matrix of being. It is the energy of being and becoming. It is that which holds things together.
True love, I think, is connection. When we connect with someone, when we really feel our identity with them, I think we can't help but love them.
Most people think of love primarily as romantic love, but I think that's simply an outcome of women's magazines.
I grew up in the 40s because I'm born in the 20s. And my notion of love, in the sense of a man with a woman, would be conditioned by how it looked in the movies.
I love you more than I've ever loved any woman. And I've waited longer for you than I've ever waited for any woman.
And in the songs we sang.
The bells are ringing for me and my gal. The birds are singing for me and my gal.
And the way we danced. So the story that you get seems to me very important. That was how it was supposed to be.
I love you. Do you hear me?
Today, the romantic myth dominates popular culture. Romance has become the holy grail of our time, and the popular media leads us to believe that love can be realized in a moment, across a crowded room, and it will last for a lifetime. In reality, romance is more fleeting than we're told, more complicated than we could have imagined, more elusive than we were led to believe. Meet Mark and Monica, a thoroughly modern Romeo and Juliet in today's wired world.
My name is about to be Monica Cravata. I'm 34.
That's a good idea.
I am getting married Saturday. Yes, I am.
This one is from Aunt Charlene, who couldn't make the wedding.
I'm giddy about this wedding. I'm giggly. I'm like 16. Fantastic.
Excellent. It's kind of a big weekend. I think Monica's a little nervous, but I'm not. Ready?
Yep.
I'm really ready to do this.
When I lost my first love, which was over 10 years ago, I had a little unconscious message that said, "You will never find love again." And for the next 10 years of my life, I played it out that way, getting heartbroken over and over and over again. And the wedding invites were pouring in, and the baby shower invites were pouring in, and I was like, I'm a loser. It just sort of hit me that whether somebody was ever attracted to me again or not, the likelihood that they would be if I was doing what I love. And I really decided that doing what I love was going to be to go explore music in Austin. I decided to check out this dating internet thing, and I thought, just for fun, I would look up 78704, an Austin zip code. I saw Mark's little profile. He was cute, and he was self-employed. He was a musician. He had all the things that I cared about in my checklist.
She had lots of stuff going on. She was into music. She fronted a 10-piece band in Boulder, Colorado. I thought she was extraordinary just from this friendship that we had developed over the phone. And it occurred to me that there might be something there.
After I moved to town, they said, well, why don't I take you out to dinner? I said, okay. Yeah, it'd be cool to meet you.
Some Mexican food? Well, I mean, I don't know if I believe in love at first sight. I don't think I've ever experienced it. I experienced Monica as possibility.
He said, so what do you think about dating? And I was like, whoa, slow down.
Monica was afraid that I might not be capable of a long-term relationship because I had been divorced twice. I had 2 marriages that didn't work. And I could certainly understand her being afraid of that. I got married when I was 22. Really thought that all you needed was to be in love and that would carry you through. Really didn't pay much attention to what our values or goals were in life, what we wanted out of life. And it turned out they were pretty different. So, I could say that marriage shouldn't have happened, that it was a mistake, but it couldn't possibly have been a mistake because my daughter came from that marriage, and she is just amazing. I can't imagine life without her.
In my little list of who my dream guy would be that I had been building up for 20 years or however long, married twice with kid was not on my list. I think I drilled him for at least 6 months to understand if he was going to get married again, would it be forever? Because that's what I wanted. And could he view marriage that way?
I had never looked at marriage as a forever thing. I looked at it as long as you both shall love, and not as long as you both shall live.
Well, I'd like to make a toast to Monica and to your success.
Thank you.
Amen. When I asked you what was your bag with marriage,
Not forever.
no, your promise was, I promise to be with you as long as I love you.
Yeah. Right. I argued with you about that for a while. But toward the end of the conversation, you said something that really shifted it for me. You said, look, I'm just saying that if you look at marriage as forever, you might choose differently.
The people you get married to.
Right. And I was like, right. Yeah. It made all the difference. Yeah. And so I made a determination that I was never going to get married again unless I saw it as forever. And, when I really got to know Monica, I realized that this was someone that I wanted to grow old with.
All my best friends in one room. How fabulous.
Oh, that's okay. Congratulations, Monica. I know. I'm just amazed that people are getting married now. Really? Yes. I mean, it's just like, what it says to me is how much people want to believe in love. Yeah. in love because they're willing to take a chance. I just think it's really brave to get married.
You know, you guys probably heard that everybody has this mold that's they've designed through their life that's for their beloved. And many of us, including me, I'm not even going to number how many times, try to like shove someone into that mold, like, you are the one! Get in there! Get in there! But the real one just lies down. Oh. They just lie in the mold because they fit, and they choose to. I had spent the last 10 years of my life equating love with yearning. And I've learned that love is far from yearning. Love is the person who is there. Love is the person who wants you. And there is no yearning required.
Shaking up the day, filling up the night, opening my mind.
This song that Mark wrote is called With You.
You with me, my dreams come true. Your hand in mine.
I mean, I've always wanted someone just to say, always with you. And not only is he saying it, but it's in song, and it's beautiful.
I vow to express my love for you in words and in actions, so you will know and feel my love for you.
I promise to be open and honest with you, caring for you in a lifelong commitment. This is the good part.
Your favorite word.
Right. And I will be a committed and loving partner in raising our future children.
We are in a position now where we definitely could get hurt, and we're in anyway. But that's where the juicy stuff is.
Always with you.
Lots of people wonder about whether romance lasts, and that's a very variable question. There's not one answer to that question. Some people are married forever and are perfectly, perfectly happy, and some people regret it as soon as they walk down the aisle. And great love affairs come in different packages. My grandfather, who died a year short of 101, had a second wife, outlived his first wife, had his second wife, whom he married in his 70s, and that was the great love of his life, and it was totally astonishing.
One of the greatest stories about love in literature, just because we're all so familiar with it, is Romeo and Juliet. It's about love consummated, and then before it has a chance to fritter away, undercut by the obstacles. She dies, then he kills himself for love of her, and then it turns out she's not really dead, and she kills herself for love of him. What people don't remember is that Romeo was in love with someone else before Juliet came along. And in a minute, when he sees Juliet, he forgets his former love. So one of the enduring themes about love is its fickle nature, that somehow it has to do with the yearning of the human heart, which lands on one object and then lands on another, always looking for some object that is really up here.
Why is love so painful? Now, the only way I can understand that, and I mean this in different kinds of love, that it breaks the heart, and that the broken heart is no longer the innocent heart. So it's the great learning of the soul, that love is the great learning of the soul.
Yes, the soul, but the body too. Romance is almost always linked to sex, in and out of the media, most especially in our minds.
You'll never leave me, baby.
In the United States, I think that sex is extremely important and crucial, but it's not a universal. I mean, there are some arranged marriages where people fall into it and may or may not have good sex lives, but their bonds are around other issues.
Sex is really important when it comes to love because it is the embodiment of union. It's the way we know union best, and love is the yearning for union.
That was one of the most interesting things. I studied this question of what is romantic love. It's revolutionary. It's upsetting. Meaning it's upsetting some convention of some sort or another. Idealistic, so you don't really see what the other person is or even what you are. And what else is romantic love? It's unfulfillable.
Have you ever been in love?
Of course.
How did you know you were in love?
I was crazy, possessed, desirous, needy, unstable, and obsessed.
Perhaps the most powerful love story in all of literature is one that most people don't know much about. Dante's Divine Comedy. The poem was inspired by Dante's love for Beatrice, a young woman he saw from a distance when he, too, was young. The two never met, but Dante was stricken with her beauty. He spent years trying to deal with his love for her and his sorrow over her early death. Dante's longing and desire inspires his literary journey through hell, purgatory, and finally, paradise. But the message is about more than romance.
Dante's love story is different from the love story that mostly we have in this culture because the person that he falls in love with is someone who is leading him not to herself, but to God. So Dante's love story is not a love story about individual human beings. In the end, it's a story about how to go through the obstacles that your own personality puts in the way of true seeing until you come to God.
Harriet Rubin, an American author, was writing about Dante when she found her own life strangely paralleling that of the 14th century writer himself.
I set out to follow Dante's path. Through the 19 years of his exile, my plan was to make the walk that Dante made from Florence to Rome. When I got to Rome, I found at the gates of one of the libraries a Virgil scholar. And it was in that moment that I really understood what Dante must have seen when he saw the face of Beatrice. It was instant love with this man whom I didn't know. And oddly enough, that he was a Virgil scholar was important because Dante, at the entrance to the gates of hell, meets Virgil, his sweet master, he calls him, the poet to beat on the block. And the two of them go through hell. Dante cannot make the trip alone. Virgil accompanies Dante all through hell and up to the very peak of purgatory. I started living hell myself at that. Hell, purgatory, and paradise at that time. My love was a coup de foudre, a clap of thunder, a bout of madness. I thought I would delay then making the rest of the journey, but I found there was no delay. Dante already had me in his story. And once that happens, there's no getting out. Stephen said to me in Rome, the day we met, he said, "We're going to marry. You are the love of my life." And I thought, how could he possibly know this? He said to me, "Do you want to live your life as if it's biography or a novel. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, if you want to live your life as if you're just going to build facts towards some kind of completion, just almost as if it were a resume, or if you want to live your life as if you were inventing a great love story, then if you want the love story, that's me. The love that Dante describes to us in the Divine Comedy begins actually in hell. When Dante makes his many circles through all the chambers of hell and confronts sinners one by one, what you begin to realize is that everyone in hell is in hell because he's loved badly. He's loved in the most material way. He's loved sex too much. He's loved money too much. That's why all these people are in hell. What Dante learns is that one must love the soul. One must love that which can never die. One must love the essence of all things, not their physical manifestation. We decided to marry. We chose a date, we found a home, and that night, Stephen, my Virgil scholar, suffered a seizure. The worst diagnosis of brain cancer one could have. 4 months, perhaps, of steady decline, we were told. We sought care, we sought treatment, and as we made this journey through the medical establishment, it was like going through the many circles of hell, going through hopelessness, despair, confronting death, sorrow. My fantasy white wedding became a wedding in the neurology ward at UCLA Hospital, a ceremony of hospital whites. Every fantasy I had became the most desperate kind of reality. And the reason I did this, to the extent it was rational, was because I thought, here is a man who has no time to fantasize love, who can only live and express what he's feeling. It was that urgency that stripped away all the fantasy and made love real and immediate. I never regretted the decision to marry Stephen. His need was so great that I had to give him everything, more than I thought I was capable of. He showed me love for everything, holding his head up. It was an exchange of pure love, wordless love. I began to learn something I never knew before, which was how to experience love, how to accept it. That was, in a way, the greatest lesson of all. As I read further into Dante, I knew what was coming. I knew that at the very peak of purgatory, Virgil would leave Dante. He would say to him, "Now you must go on your own. I've taken you in this quest to the meaning of love as far as I can." And as I got there in my reading, and as I got there in my studies, Stephen declined and declined. And Stephen gave me his last kiss and said, "You're going to be better off without me. You'll be stronger and you'll survive." And he died just as I was reading the canto, where Virgil disappears. Virgil crowns Dante, says, "I make you Lord and Master of your soul." Only when he gets to paradise does Dante realize that the object of our love is always God, and that God and man together are the formula for love. That's the greatest gift of love, seeing God in another person's eyes. It's loving the world, everything that the person represents, the sun and the other stars.
We're larger than what we know, and love reminds us of that. And the other thing that love does is remind us that our boundaries don't stop with our bodies, that we are all one in some very profound, real sense. And love teaches us that. Love reminds us that. Love lures us to that and to the experience of it.
Love is a mystery because it tells me that there's more beyond that which I see in the realm of time and space. And I've got to wait till I get there to find out what, for heaven's sake, is it.
Love longs for union, even as science and technology are working in laboratories to take love apart, making what some call progress in unlocking the chemical neurological gates to the garden of love.
I don't know what we might learn were we to know more about the hormones and the serotonin inhibitors and all the rest of the stuff that we find every 10 years. We find new physiological stuff on a micro level. I don't know what that's going to do in regard to understanding the cult of Mary or Dante's love for Beatrice or Keats's poems or any of the rest of it.
While molecules and chemicals may tell us nothing about love, some scientists believe that our closest animal relatives, the primates, can teach us a great deal about other forms of bonding and connection.
We don't use the word love. It's a bit of a mushy word, and we don't know how to define it. The similarity in DNA between us and bonobos and chimpanzees is 98.5%. That means that we are 1.5% in terms of DNA different from them. And I think the simplest assumption is that if a chimpanzee acts very similar to my behavior, then the psychology behind it is very similar to my psychology. Friendship we usually define as individuals who spend time together, who help each other, who groom each other, who share food together. Those we can call friends. Now, probably they also love each other to some degree. You would assume that. Two young chimpanzee females who were trying to get to my office. I think it's just a game because they will never get to my office, really. They will never get out. This is the place that they normally cannot reach, certainly not on their own. And what I like is that they seem to be in tune with each other. They seem to understand each other's goals. They have worked this out. They've probably done it many times. This is a game that they have developed. And so you see some of that being in tune with each other, which relates to empathy and relates to understanding others. A story of altruism that we had in our group actually recently. We have an old female, her name is Penny, and she is arthritic. And she basically cannot climb on the climbers anymore. And we've seen situations, which I thought was very interesting, where she's trying to get on there, her legs don't want anymore, where younger females have pushed her butt up and have pushed her up on the climber. We've also seen a case where a younger female, younger meaning 20 years old, Penny is 45 or something, where a younger female has gone to the spigot and sucked a mouthful of water, then walked to Penny and spit it in her mouth. And so that's very interesting altruistic behavior. These are unrelated individuals who are doing it, taking care of an old lady in their group. In the primates, all thinking that they do in terms of altruism and helping is focused on the group. So it's focused on the ones immediately surrounding them. I don't think they care one bit about what other groups are doing and how they're doing. And they would just as well kill them if they can to get access to resources. But within the group, they have inhibitions. And so the within group behavior and between group behavior is totally different for the primates. And I think originally for people too.
I believe that we human beings need to acknowledge that we are a part of the animal kingdom. And I think we should rejoice when we are able to see what the elements were before they were spoiled by human machinations. And in the animal kingdom, we often get a sense of what, in full development, makes us fully human.
We're part of the animal kingdom not only in our capacity to bond, but also in our capacity to hate. The same primates who care for those inside the family grouping ferociously attack outsiders. For humans, too, those outside the circle of family or tribe can too easily become the enemy. And then the passion of connection turns into the terrible love of war.
I want you to remember that no ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor dumb die for his country. Commence firing.
God help me, I do love it so. I love it more than my life.
Weapons on civilian trucks, break.
Although most believe they fight wars for love of country, author and analyst James Hillman thinks otherwise.
You run the risk of an ambush. That is
the love of war is a love in war of the men for each other. There's a love of war that draws people to go to war. And there's a beauty in war that attracts people. And that's something people don't like to talk about, but we're all fascinated by the sublime terror. Or we wouldn't be watching the explosions on TV, or we wouldn't be watching Apocalypse Now and the beginning of that fantastic.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
The reports say it again and again and again. I never saw such a beautiful thing in my life as this plane blowing up, as this bomb going off. Nobody wants to hear it, but it's there. The interesting thing for me is how Mars, the god of war, is coupled with Venus, the goddess of beauty and love. Why is Mars coupled with Venus? Now, when you like to think in opposites, then you say, well, Mars is ugly and hairy and red and brutal and raging, and Venus is sweet and the oyster shell and the pearls and water, and they're opposites and they take care of each other. But I think there's an innate connection. It's the way of solving the Mars problem. And that's why the military has such extraordinary rituals of beauty. The attraction to the military offers an aesthetic intensity. Parades, music, uniforms, weapons, the love of all that, and the discipline that goes with that calm keeps Mars from being a raging, fanatic brute. That's why there is all that chicken in the military. It keeps it in a Venusian form. So you have salutes and mess orders, flags, banners, decorum and all that. And the interesting thing for me, they may march off in a state of euphoria with the bands playing and mothers kissing them goodbye on the railroad tracks, but that's not what keeps them there.
I'm at the door. Get on you now!
The element in common between the different kinds of love would be that one is transported outside of one's usual. The ecstasy can be the highest moment ever experienced, as many battle veterans say. That would make it in common with other kinds of passionate love, sexual love, divine love, mystical love. You become crazy in a way, just as you do in a passionate affair. You become crazy. You do things you should never do. You break the rules, you break the bounds, you're outside of yourself, you find a whole new personality in yourself. Maybe that's a shadow of love. It's not love in that peaceful, mamby-pamby notion of love, turn the other cheek and all that crap. They've tried that for how many years? 2,000 years? That hasn't stopped any wars. One of the interesting things about the love of war is that men who come back aren't able to talk about it. Why can't they talk about it? It's like a mystery. When a person went through the mystery cults or a deep religious experience, there was silence. You don't talk about it. It's not only that they experience such horror, but they experience such depth, such terror and such beauty at once. When the men in the Second World War and in the First World War, the American men were asked what they were fighting for, why they were there, the interviews all came out the same way. They were there not because of democracy, not because of protecting the country, but for the other guys. They were there for love of their unit. Vulnerability, the sense that the next one could have my name on it, is certainly important for forming community. Community is so very difficult to form since our society is based on competition. Everybody for himself. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and everybody else is a possible enemy. But in the platoon or in the unit, your life depends on the others, and their life depends on you. When a man sacrifices his life, dies for another man, is for the other. That's the important part that you might call common to all love. The other.
I think it's possible to look forward to moments in history when war will be so obviously ludicrous and destructive that we will choose other ways of resolving our conflict. But as long as human beings vie for precious resources, or live in the context in which they have to defend their own existence, we will discover that the will to live in the face of threat to our well-being will eventuate into hostility, and usually hostility reaches out for whatever power is available to achieve its end. So yes, war is going to be around all the time, but I'm looking for pockets of peace.
Many believe that the ideal of a loving God is the pole star that can guide our way. Although history demonstrates that religion is often a provocation to war, religious belief can also provide a path to opening the heart. In San Diego, two men are working hard against the odds to encourage the flow of forgiveness in their community.
All the people you're going to meet up on stage today have been deeply affected by violence. All right, I wanted you guys to take a second and look at this picture right here, okay? Because I don't think that this is something that we see very often in our world. This man's grandson killed this man's son. And they're sitting here together today in the spirit of forgiveness.
Tariq Kamisa was shot and killed when Kamisa refused to give up the pizza he was delivering to a phony address.
Tony Hicks admitted to pulling the trigger on 20-year-old college student Tariq Kamisa. He said he was angry. He'd been born to teenage parents who were gang members themselves.
When I got that news, I felt pain like a nuclear bomb had detonated inside of my heart. My son, he died 6 weeks before his 21st birthday. It's the most excruciating pain a parent can ever feel. I can't believe a 14-year-old to handle a gun and take a life of another human being, an innocent, unarmed human being, for a lousy pizza.
Admitting, sir, that on that date you did in fact shoot and kill Mr. Kamisa during the attempted commission of a robbery. Is that correct?
Yes. It was one of the worst shocks that I've had in my life. It's one of the last photos I took of him before this tragic incident took place. He was 14. I experienced all the emotions that could be experienced by a caregiver whose grandchild does something like that. Name it. Shame, guilt, sadness, anger, disappointment. Because I was really powerless. I couldn't do anything to prevent Tony from making a violent choice to commit murder.
On January 21st, 1995, I shot and killed Tariq Kamisa, a person I didn't even know and who didn't do anything wrong to me. I still don't know why I shot Tariq, but I don't want to use my problems as an excuse for my actions. I'm sorry for the pain that I caused. I pray to God every day that Miss Kamisa will forgive me for what I've done.
I'd lost a lot of will to live. I became very suicidal at that point, I thought, and I could quite have easily have ended my life. My upbringing is Sufi Muslim. According to the Sufi teachings, good, compassionate deeds are spiritual currency, and they transfer to the departed soul and provide high-octane fuel for the soul's journey. My faith had given me a mission. I had a job to do. I had to get up every morning and create spiritual currency for my son. Through that prism of the soul, I was able to create forgiveness and love. And I saw that there were victims at both ends of the gun. And one thing I've learned is that when you stay in resentment, you are totally transmitting, you're not receiving. There's no room for love and joy.
I knew that there wasn't going to be very much sympathy for this black teenage kid who committed murder in the context of a gang involvement. He was the first kid to be adjudicated as an adult, and it would result in Tony's being sent to an adult prison as a teenager for 25 years or more of his life. From the first time that I found out that Tony was responsible, I really wanted to meet Tariq's family and to express my sympathies and condolences to them.
I met Ples, and I looked into his eyes and said, Ples, I want you to know that I don't feel any animosity towards you or Tony. I feel that this tragic incident victimized and traumatized both our families. And I've started this foundation in memory of my son to help me deal with this loss in a positive manner.
He said, I'm going to form a foundation in my son's name, and I'd like it to be focused in preventing violence. I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it, but will you help me? And I said, yes, of course I'll help you. I'll do anything I can.
This tale ends where most tales begin.
Tony Bone told the 9mm while Tariq was on the streets of North Park talking pizza. Here comes some pizza, y'all. Let's rock some pizza, y'all. Tony scared with his hand on his man's 9. Antoine gave the call. The hammer dropped. And now both lives are gone.
Tony has murdered somebody. He knows he's done the worst thing he could ever do. He knows he's made the worst choice he could have ever made in his life. But it's too late.
Sometimes we don't realize how painful it is unless it happens to us. How many would want revenge here? Many, huh? It is natural to want revenge. But let me ask you, would revenge bring Tariq back? No. Instead of revenge, I chose forgiveness, and I reached out to Tony's grandfather, Ples Felix. And that was 10 years ago. And because of forgiveness, there's a lot of love I have for Ples. There's a lot of love that Ples has for me. I have a friend for life that would do anything for me as I would do for him.
Hello, brother. How you doing?
Good, Ples. How you doing?
Good, good. Good to see you. Welcome back.
We've been together, working together for 10 years now, and it seems like the elder brother I never had.
How you doing?
Good. Very
This
well.
relationship that we're in contributes to the healing. And as long as we continue to do this work in the way we do it, the friendship will continue to grow and flourish.
The unity and the brotherhood, the bond that has come out of this tragedy is something that blows my mind. That my love for Ples has grown. I have been able to contain so much more of the divine spirit, so much more compassion, so much more understanding, and so much more joy.
When we think about the ancient racial hatreds in certain parts of the world, in all of the ethnic conflicts that we have witnessed in recent years, we see how difficult it is for people to let go of the past and start over. And yet I think that's what we're challenged to do. Just as those of us who have had personal experiences of loss and disappointment, we have to be willing to put that to rest before we can love again, before we can find a sense of renewal. I think the same is true in the world.
If Ples and Nazim are the story of uncommon friendship, ordinary friendship is the essential element that all loves have in common.
Jesus said, greater love hath no man than this, that he gives his life for his friends. And friendship, Aristotle noticed, was a purer form of love than romantic love. It's purely there for the other. It doesn't seek to fulfill anything in itself. It seeks to give. And over time, as you get older, friendship becomes, I think, more and more important.
Camilla Williams, leading soprano of the New York City Opera Company.
Little David, play on your harp, hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play on your harp, hallelujah. Little David, play on your harp, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Mama said, you can count your friends on one hand and have some fingers left. That is the truest statement that was ever made. And this is a good example. What's with your thumb, Boris? It hurts?
No, yeah, a little bit. You know, the arthritis is creeping gradually. I was born in Sofia, Bulgaria. In 52 days, I am going to be 95.
He's counting the days. I'm 85, and when I met Boris, I think I must have been 27 years old. I'm the first Negro to receive a steady contract with a major opera company, New York City Opera. I had just finished my debut in Madame Butterfly, and they had arranged a big concert tour, 50 concerts. I had a call from Columbia Artists telling me that Dr. Bozzella was coming to have an audition with me to see whether I liked him or not.
She opened the score. It was the Marriage of Figaro. Mm-hmm. I strike a chord on the piano and she starts singing. I could not believe my ears. A voice from heaven. We went over the program without repeating one of the songs. And in 3 days, I received a letter from Columbia Artist Management with the itinerary for 35 concerts until the end of March. We became friends and workers together, but she wanted to meet my family, you know, and my wife and my two children. Mm-hmm. And they loved Camilla from the first day.
My husband's name was Charles Beavers. I'm Mrs. Beavers. Charlie and I married in 1950. See, I met Boris in 48. 2 years later, Charlie and I got married. And when Boris and Lonnie were made citizens, Charlie and I were their witness.
This is F minor.
I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm lost in this wide world
It was spring already, and we started a southern tour. The first concert was in Washington, and after Washington, we had to take the train. And Camilla said, now you are going to sit in the front of the couch, and I have to go in the back. I said, why? I said, we traveled all the way to San Francisco, and we were together in the coach. And no, yeah, but she said, this is the Mason-Dixon line. So you have to do. I said, no, Camilla, I am not an American citizen. I have my Bulgarian passport with the American visa, and these laws don't apply to me.
We went into the dining room, and I had to go behind the curtain during segregation. You had to eat behind the curtain. And one lady said, why is that white gentleman sitting behind the curtain with that black gal? And all I could do was cry. You know, I cried for years because I never knew how to answer people. I used to answer them with my tears. And so Boris said, Camilla, don't let that lady hurt you. And I finally stopped crying. But you see, that's the way times were then. But I've heard of a city called heaven. I'm striving to make it my home. Our travels took us all over until I went to Europe in '54. But you see, Boris had his own studio and his own students, and he was raising these two fine young fellas of his. And when you have children, it's hard to travel.
But we stay in
touch.
In touch all the time. And my wife, of course, my wife was like a sister.
Sister and
with
Boris,
Camilla.
my husband, and Boris were like two brothers.
My boys loved Charlie, and my wife loved Charlie. And when we heard her sister called to tell us that Charlie died, my wife was on the telephone. She screamed, "Charlie's dead." She could not believe it, you know. She cried. She cried with tears.
We were all a unit. We were all.
It was a friendship that, without any restriction, he belonged to you.
That's my Charlie. He passed away at 49. It's young. That's when I came out here to Indiana. See, I came here 77, 78. And they wrote an article when I first came, being the first black professor of voice here.
Elizabeth, this was the newest.
I've been here almost 30 years. Oh, how thanks you should give. It is.
December 12, 99.
Yes.
Yeah.
His son, Michael, called me and said, "Camilla, Mama passed away." I thought he was really talking about Boris. You understand?
Yeah.
Because I had just heard from her. She had just sent me a Christmas card. And so that was really tough.
The morning before she died, she told me, "I think my time has come."
And so, after poor Lonnie passed, his son, Rosvigor, called, and they had been looking for senior citizen places for Boris to go. He said, "Camilla, I think it'd be wonderful if Father would come and be with you." I said, "Boy, that's a blessing." Boris! And so that's how Boris came to be with me after Lonnie passed away. So this is Boris's bedroom. I said, this was my guest room. I had it very frilly. And then when Boris came, my niece said, "Aunt Camilla, take some of those frilly things out and make it more macho."
This is the walker.
Oh, that's it for exercising.
This is the exercise.
Look at Boris exercising. Look. You better get off now. That's enough.
That's enough?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want you to wear yourself
right.
out. Mm-hmm.
Obedient.
Boris's sons knew that he had to go somewhere where he'd have friendship and be able to play the piano.
And then we can...
Boris loves to cook.
Yeah.
He's an excellent cook.
I have to cook?
No, but you're an excellent cook. Really?
It is for my sons. It was a great, great relief, you know, to see me not alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, that looks good.
These are the best pancakes that I have eaten.
Wunderbar. Ausgezeichnet. Prima.
A plus?
You get an A plus.
A plus.
I think there's all kind of love. There's romantic, and then there is friendship. And I thank the Lord every night for the friendship of Portis.
There's no doubt that there is a family connection between all kinds of love. And you feel it in terms of the sacrifice that you are willing to make for people you love and your absolute commitment and devotion to them. And I think that's the crossover between religious love, love of spouse, children, family, and also the love of friends.
We can imagine in terms of a hierarchy of love, but I wonder what you'd put at the top.
I think unconditional love is an ideal that we would like to be able to love unconditionally, but most of us have too much investment in what we want. Love is so often mixed with desire, and we want to be loved. We want our children, for example, to be what we would like them to be. We want them to be the best that they can be. And if parental love, I suppose, in some ways is the closest we come to unconditional love, because we tend to love them even when they do what we don't like.
Parents and children. In most cases, a love of infinite measure. But can it be unconditional? The Johnson family lives in Minnesota.
Music is one of my biggest passions. I play bass guitar. I also play acoustic guitar and electric guitar. The main places where we play was Depot Coffee House. It's a student-run thing. We love jamming. Art is at its best when it's just collaborative, when it's just spur of the moment, where you try new things. But that's what it's all about, is experimentation.
Brian came out being his own person. Brian has never been one to go with the flow. If everybody's doing something, you know, there's a little bit, you know, you do what your friends do, but he has real conviction.
When I got my ear pierced, beforehand I knew my parents really weren't okay with that. I talked to them a couple times about it, and they brushed it off, thinking, okay, yeah, it's just a phase, because all of us go through phases in our lives.
Just had gone to a mall or someplace and just had it in, didn't say anything, walked in, and whoa, wait, come here, let's talk, you know.
He was pretty mad. Because he grew up in a different time. Nowadays, people accept things a lot more openly.
We had quite a discussion about it. You know, our thoughts were that, you know, it was not necessarily a good thing to do because it makes people look at you a little bit differently.
He says, now, Ryan, did you get it pierced on the correct ear? Because now people are going to think that you're gay. I said, Dad, I know who I am. It doesn't matter who people think I am. Because if they truly get to know me, they'll realize that I am who I am.
Children definitely have their own challenges. As they grow up, they make bad decisions. We realize that, and we try to use those as what they call learning moments. And of course, they don't always like to listen to their parents.
He's put a few worry lines on my forehead, but he's also provided me a lot of laugh lines. Thank you.
I'm a cross-country runner. I used to play football. I prefer cross-country, though. What I like about being in nature is everything gives off a vibration. Everything has its own atmosphere, you could say. When you go up and you touch a tree, you don't just feel bark, you feel life. You can actually feel the life pulsating off it. Everything Everything has a vibration.
I am very privileged to be a pastoral minister here at St. Mary of the Lake Church. There was a time I had wanted to be a nun. I loved God so much. Church worship is very important to all of us. And my husband, who is a very wonderful man, good Christian, he's Lutheran, he's not Catholic. The rest of us are Catholic. And my mother had suggested that I invite Lee to change, to convert to Catholicism. There's not much difference. And she says, you got to do it before you get married, because you can't change him afterward. I didn't dare ask him to change, because faith and a belief system are at your very core. And if he were to change for me, that would be the wrong motivation. He would need to change for himself. I wouldn't want to force anything. I fell in love with who he was.
Certainly her God is number one, but then her family is definitely number two. When Ryan first came to us and mentioned his interest in Buddhism, it concerned us. He was at that time in faith formation at the Catholic Church, and we were concerned that he was drifting a little bit away from Christianity.
My class for confirmation, they really weren't getting it. They really didn't care that much. They just went through it because their parents wanted them to. I started questioning myself, like, what is God's love for me? What is my love for God? What is my love for everyone on earth? And I sort of had a deeper feeling about it. This is a big decision. You're choosing your religion. You're saying, this is what I want to be.
In the beginning, he wasn't sure if he wanted to continue with the confirmation process. He said that he really wanted to talk about it and reflect on it before he made that decision. We respected that. We didn't actually say we would abide by his decision, but then again, he's his own man. Ryan is definitely his own man.
What really sparked my mind about Buddhism was being one with nature. Getting rid of everything else that gets in your way, realizing that, yeah, we all have duties to do in our lives, but some are way more important than others, and it gets them in order. No matter what we achieve on earth, what we achieve spiritually is so much greater.
We both grew up as believers in Christ, and that Christ was the Son of God. And of course, Buddhism teaches otherwise.
They were very nervous, it seemed like. It seemed like they didn't really know how to react. My mom, because she has a very close relationship with Jesus, thought that I was throwing him away, throwing him aside.
Now is the time, we said, to explore other religions. And hopefully you will come to resolution and feel that Christianity is the religion for you. But if you don't, we will accept you.
You know, loving, a parent wants to fix things for their kids, but sometimes it's a greater act of love, I feel, to step back and let them bleed a little, and let them come to it on their own. I prayed a lot. I don't even know if he was thinking, is Lutheranism or Catholicism or Buddhism or whatism?
When the pressure was getting on, when it was getting close to confirmation time, I really went through a lot of inner pulls, and it ended up me and my brother driving around just talking it out. I was explaining to him my feelings, how I relate better with Buddhism than I do with Christianity, and he turned it around. He made me realize that all the teachings are the same, that they are working towards the common good of humankind. It's all about perfecting yourself. If I get confirmed, it's not saying, okay, this is the end of it, I'm Catholic forever. It's saying I'm Catholic and I'm open to everything else.
Pretty good. Lee, pretty good, Shannon.
The big concern was I wasn't accepting Jesus as my Savior.
Candy, Ryan.
I still don't know. Well, I do accept him as my Savior. I just need to grow in a relationship with him. And I told that to my parents. And that put them at ease a bit more. But I think there's still a little tension about it, because I'm going to be on this journey for the rest of my life.
When I was a Zen student at the monastery, somebody had come as a guest. That was very rare. Usually they locked the gates, but I guess it had been some important dignitary or something. And he came to the monastery, and as he was leaving, he addressed us all. And he said, I just want you all to know how grateful I am for having been in a place of unconditional love these last days. And the person next to me said, who is that guy? And the person next to him said, somebody who'd only been here for a short time.
People are the greatest obstacle to love. We get in our own way. We need our needs, our desires, our fantasy images of how it ought to be, the requirement that it be fulfilled, that the other person meet the model that you have in your mind. Those are all big obstacles.
I think love is always accompanied by grace. And I'm reminded of my Southern heritage. Yankee friend of mine went into a restaurant and ordered breakfast, and the waitress came, and there were grits with his eggs and bacon. And he said, ma'am, sorry, I didn't order grits. And she said, honey, you don't order grits. Grits comes. And I think that's what happens with love. Grace. Grace comes. When there's love, grace is there. By grace, I mean that sense of the extra dimension, the extra gift that life brings.
Without love, we can isolate ourselves and say, I am me. This is my island, my world. This is my ambition. This is what I'm going to go for, and I can step on as many people as I'd like. But love and compassion and listening to other people is what holds us down in a way, but also what helps us bring other people up, that we can share an ambition. It's a team effort, community-minded.
To the first of my lovers on a high and holy hill, and the last of my lovers, I light a candle still, and the bells will be ringing on a high and holy hill, for the first of my lovers and the last. On the hill that was holy for the pagan long ago, in the house of...
The name conspirare, con, with, and spire, to breathe, means to breathe together.
On a high and holy hill, for the first of my lovers and the last.
Well, with Conspirare, we wanted to build an ensemble that was filled with singers, all of whom have developed their voices, who have developed also the necessary ego to get up on the stage and sing alone and make sounds that sing to the back of the hall. Could these people then come together and be devoted to building a community and to be a part of the whole, part of that communal heart?
And the bells will be ringing on a high and holy hill, for the first of my lovers.
I love this song, The First of My Lovers, because it connects with love, and using the term lover to mean, yes, former lovers, spouses, cherished friends. My partner died in 1996, and just the day before he died, he got up from a pretty unconscious, almost unconscious state, just kind of coming in and out of being able to be present at all. And he said, one thing I know is we're here to learn to love and to forgive.
People who are dying need to know the meaning of their lives. They're anxious. They're running towards it. They need to feel that their lives have meaning, and they begin to suspect that the things they depended on to give it meaning, success, wealth, didn't really do that. Very often they realize that love is the answer to that question of what really gives their lives meaning.
The thing I love about singing is the fact that you make connections with other people. The world is so fragile now, we never know what's happening from day to day. Love to me is respecting each other, holding each other's hand along the journey, feeling safe.
The road home is an immediate invitation. One senses suddenly a listening audience. You feel their connecting points, whether it's now or other times in their lives when they've felt a little bit off the path or not having a path.
We are each one of us alone in our own true being. We are born alone, and each of us dies a private death, even with loved ones at our side. But most of us cannot survive and do not want to live a single day without love. We can make a choice to live life through the lens of fear, of separation, competition, and loss. Or we can see the same world differently, through the lens of love and connection. We can see the universe as the Hindus do in their image of the net of Indra, a net of gems where each jeweled intersection represents a spark of creation and illumination. Each jewel reflects every other jewel. Love is that jewel, that spark of connection when we recognize ourselves in the eyes of the other. A reflection that changes the way we see ourselves and illuminates the way of love in the world.
Love is an instinct because it pulls us into life. Love is a cultural imperative because, as the poet Auden said, we must love one another or die. Love is our highest destiny, so we're always on a quest for it. There is nothing in life that love doesn't touch, that love doesn't expand, and that love isn't at the root of. It's all love, and we don't know it, mostly.
To discover more about the mystery of love, visit us at pbs.org.